All right, what's happening, people? Jono from the Course Creator community, and I am super excited because we've got a fun guest on the line this week, all the way from Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee. Is that where it is?
Close, Nashville.
Nashville, Tennessee. Okay, cool, cool. They're the only two places I know. So lucky you didn't say anywhere else. Now, this person is an expert in gamification. If we had to simplify this, she makes learning fun. Now, I like fun things and I don't like boring things. So as soon as I heard her on a podcast, I'm like, I got to get this person on. So without further ado, let me introduce the one and only Ms. Mary Nunaley. Mary, how are you?
Hello. Hey, thanks for having me as a guest. This is so exciting. And
No,
I'm
sorry, I cut in there. What
no,
were you
no,
going
I
to
was just
say?
gonna say it's nice to know that people actually listen to episodes of podcasts that I've been on. So cool.
It is, sometimes you do these podcasts and you're like, is anyone ever going to listen to this? So I think it is cool when people reach out for that. Now, Mary, I heard you on that podcast and I'm
Mhm.
like, right, this woman's cool. I want to bring her on. I've been following you, sort of since then. For those people that haven't heard of you, didn't listen to that podcast, don't know what you do you want to spend the next couple minutes and let us know what is it that you actually do and how did you get into that?
Sure. So every day I ask myself, what is it that I actually do as well? And it's always a different answer. But in a nutshell, I am a professional course creator. So I'm an instructional designer by trade. And I have always been interested in games and playing games and game-based learning. So long before the word gamification even existed, when I was teaching in the classroom, we were using games and activities to make the learning fun.
Mm.
So I taught at a community college. I taught hotel restaurant management. I would have a fairy godmother give them an unlimited budget and they would have to build a restaurant from the ground up and they would get different rewards and stuff along the way. So that's been part of my life for as long as I can remember. I got introduced to gamification about 10 years ago, took a course on Coursera from a professor out at Wharton University, and then at a technology company that I was working at, had the opportunity to meet Yu Kai Chow, who is one of the foremost gamification experts on the planet. And he created what's called the Octalysis framework, and I'm in his community. And we then potatofied my team at this tech company. So rather than saying we were gamifying them, we potatofied them. And as they learned new skills in their job, they earned like Mr. Potato Heads and they had little sand art things at their desk and coloring potatoes that they had to fill in and all kinds of stuff because we were testing something. And so about 4 years ago, my son and I went into business together. And so we work now with course creators to help them gamify their courses, make that learning more fun and more engaging, and have a good time doing it.
Love that. And I believe you're both gamers, you and your son as well.
That is correct. So I was playing Dungeons and Dragons when it first came out back in oh so many years ago. And my son has carried on the tradition and he has two standing games that he plays every weekend. I don't play quite as often. But I have a few more responsibilities than he does.
Awesome. And by gaming, are we talking Dungeon and Dragons? Are we talking video games, board games, all of the
Uh,
above?
all of the above. So I am more of a role playing and tabletop gamer, and also phone games. My son is an avid video gamer, role playing game, and some board games. So, pretty much mix. And then with my daughter, we also got and do physical activities. So both of my children were athletes. My son played tennis, my daughter played basketball and softball. And as a family, we like to go out and play disc golf.
There we go. All right. Let's speak about gamification in general,
Yes.
Mary. So you've given us a bit of an idea there. There may be some people that are like, oh, I sort of get it. What is gamification? Do you want to break it down at its most simple level? What is gamification? And then maybe some examples where people may be listening and be like, oh, that's gamification. I did a course and that had that. I didn't even realize, or I was on whatever, Facebook and oh, that's gamification. What can you tell us about gamification in general? Simplified version.
Sure. Simplified version using elements of games to improve the audience experience in a playful
Mm,
manner. So you use game elements, strategies. Many people think that gamification is points, badges, and leaderboards, but it's really more than that. It's having a plan of how do I get my audience, my students, to take specific actions to achieve a specific result, and then how do I reward them for doing that? So I use the game Monopoly as an example all the time. Most people are familiar with the game. The game has rules. So you know that when you roll the dice, if you roll doubles, something bad's going to happen if you do that too many times. And you're going to end up going to Monopoly jail. So that's part of the risk factor in the game, because you're also competing, but you never know what's going to happen. So there's a little bit of that chance there. The other thing about Monopoly, though, is that everyone I've ever met, they all have their own rules on how to play the game. So it's like, here's the rules that come with the game. And then here's our rules. Like, do you get the money that goes into the middle of the pot? What happened? You know, how do you get? So the key thing is being clear on what those rules are and letting your audience know what your rules are so they know how to win, and then give them feedback.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. What are some examples there, Mary, where someone may have done a course before or been through something and they're like, oh, that's gamification. Now they know that that's gamification. At the
Yes.
time, they didn't even think about it.
Yeah. So, you know, the very obvious one, point badges and leaderboards, like you get points for if you're in university and you're taking an online course, and to earn an A, top grade, you have to get a certain number of points for turning in your homework, a certain
Mm,
number of points for participating in a discussion, a certain number of points for a group project. That's like the outskirts of gamification, although we've been doing this for as long as we can remember.
yeah.
To gamify it is maybe you give a badge to that student that says, you were the top person in the discussions this week and you
Mm,
contributed the most. So if you think of some of the tech sites that are out there, you look and some people get badges for like, okay, this person is a platinum expert because they've answered 150 questions and the community has said they really know their stuff. Now they have a badge. So now when I'm on the site, I'm like, ooh, I want to go to Jono because he knows his stuff
mm.
because he's got that platinum badge.
Facebook
Gamification.
groups have it now as well. I don't know if you've
Facebook,
seen,
that is
different,
correct.
there are
Facebook groups have it.
conversation starter and, visual storyteller and
Yeah, expert answerer. So it's
yeah.
kind of cool. The key thing is though, is a lot of people use badges just for using badges. And when I talk to folks about Facebook badges, the response is either, huh? I didn't even know they had them,
Yeah.
or so what? So
Yeah.
unless I'm really trying to make my mark as a visual person, it really doesn't matter to me if I have a visual badge or not. It's like, okay, great.
Mm,
So what? So you got to make sure that your badges have meaning to your audience.
yeah.
So
Love that.
that's another key part of it. Another example though, and this is where I always get excited, and you probably heard me talking about this on that other podcast, a simple thing that people can do to gamify their course, their lead magnet, whatever, Easter eggs. And if you don't know what an Easter egg is, it's a hidden surprise in your content.
Mm,
So if you've ever been to a Marvel movie, you know, Captain America, Thor, one of those, everyone who's in the know knows that you wait till after the credits, because there's going to be some special scene that comes after the credits have finished running. That's an Easter egg.
yeah, I'm not in the know. I never knew that. Now I feel left
Yes,
out.
yes. So you always stay past the credits, and then there's a special scene that happens afterwards. And it's usually a little cheeky or snarky or a little bit, but those that are in the know wait to see that. So
Mm,
now how do you apply that to your course or to your lead magnet? Is if there's a spot in your course that you know that students always drop off, or it's a really technical piece of information, hide an Easter egg there. And if they get that far, they click a link and up pops a little video with some special like insider content. And then if you're in a cohort, you might go, "Oh, Mary, did you get that video?" And I'm like, what video?" So now you're also encouraging people to go back and rewatch the content because they want that special bonus stuff.
mm, love that. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Cool. Question from there, Mary. So that's a good little
Yes.
tip there that we can do. What are some other little tips that a course creator could implement right now if they're like, okay, I need this gamification stuff. Here's my course. What can I add in today that's going to make this make it more fun and engaging for the students tomorrow?
Yeah, so great question. How do you make it immediately actionable? You can use something like the free spinner wheels that are out on the web, where you know type in free spinning wheel and you give them an assignment, or you give them something that you want them to do, and then say everybody who responds to this by, you know, midnight tonight, they're going to get their name on the spinner wheel and they get a free 15-minute consultation with me.
Mm,
And you see who's responded, you put it on the wheel. You could go live in your course, or you could do a little video so they know that you're not cheating, and you show them the wheel, boom. So there's that element of surprise and that element of chance, but you're having them take a desired action. I want you to do this. And it's tied into the course content, but that's like something you could do immediately with no
Love that.
cost.
I'm going to do it as soon as I get off this call. Awesome. Have you got one more immediate tip that we can implement?
So one more immediate tip, if you already have your content existing,
Yep.
you can also just go back and tweak it a little bit. So I'm thinking like print content, a PDF handout or whatever. And at the bottom of it, put a picture or a QR code that makes sense. So maybe there's 3 of them. That makes a collection set, just like a Pokemon cards that people collect.
Mm,
Then you tell them, tell me which 3 items in the class had this little hidden image on it and redeem it for a prize.
yeah, love it.
But it doesn't take a lot of extra work on your part. It could even be if you're using like a text, like I use Thinkific as my platform. So there's an area where I can type in text and I could insert images. So I could insert my image right there. I don't even have to go mess around with creating a PDF or a PowerPoint. I just go add some images and say, okay, find the hidden images at the bottom of, the content.
Awesome. Love it. All right. Cool. Good tips there, Mary. What about long-term tips? So let's say, for
Long.
example, people are like, I've done all these little ones. What are some really cool ones I can do? All right, I might not be able to implement it tomorrow, but on my next course, maybe I can implement it. Or, I'm going to, whatever, spend the next month working on this course here and adding some little things to it there. What are some good long-term tips you can give us?
Excellent. So the first thing I'm going to say is about you have to have a strategy as the course creator. So adding gamification elements without a strategy leaves your audience with still this kind of like, throwaway experience. It's like it
Mm,
didn't really motivate me to do anything. So the tip that I would say first and foremost is figure out who your audience is and what motivates them. And maybe you do some polls in your Facebook groups or talk to them. Figure out what your business goals are for your course. Like, is it you want to increase completion rate? Is it I want to make more sales? And there's a reason for this. So now you know who your audience is, and now you know what your business goals are. Now you have to think about what actions do I want my audience to take that will help me reach my business goals and will help move them on the journey. And that's how you make your gamified decisions, because now there's an actual strategy. I know my audience. I know what I want. Here's what I want them to do. How am I going to give them feedback? So if they don't do the action you want, maybe it's, buy the next course or finish the video, give them some feedback. And a lot of the software now you can build in little things that come in and go, wah, wah, you didn't do the video, or woo, you completed the video. Congratulations. And, there's little confetti that falls. And then what's the reward? So now you've taken all these actions through the course. How am I going to reward you? So that's the big picture long term. But if you gamify without a strategy, your audience, your students are going to know that. And it's just like, great, I got this badge. So what? It doesn't mean anything. Or, woo, I got 10,000 awesome points. So what? What do I do with them? So once you know what you want them to do and how it helps your business, then you can add some more in-depth things. So you might want to give them points. You might want to create badges, build a leaderboard for the course and go, hey, here's the top 5 homework completers or the top 5 video watchers. And as a result, here's what they get. Maybe they get 10% off your next course that they sign up for you with or something. So make it a reward that has meaning to your audience.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's even go. So let's break that down a bit. Let's say your goal is, okay, let's say your goal is completion rates.
Mhm.
What's a way you would gamify for completion rates?
Sure. So one of the things you would gamify for completion rates is look, if it's a brand new course, you're not going to have as much data to pull from. If it's a course that you've taught before, go in and see where people stopped tuning in
Yeah, gotcha.
and then build in a quiz, not like a
Mm.
boring LMS quiz, but something that's fun and interactive. And it's like, what would happen if you didn't do this? Or build in a scavenger hunt in the course. That's a great way to drive completion because you have them searching for different elements in the course, just like a scavenger hunt. And then they also become better at mastering the material. So you may have, in lesson 1, look for this, in lesson 3, look for that, in lesson 4, look for that. Even create a little map for them that they can then fill out, put an X marks the spot. When you get 5 lessons, Well, it's like, oh, I get put into a drawing for a prize, and I've now gone on the scavenger hunt, and I've read all the material and watched all the videos, and I'm having fun doing it.
Okay. I just got an idea then, or I remembered something. I went to a conference years ago now, and
Hmm.
they had like a magic word. So it was like, there's five, it was multi speaker, 5 or 6 different speakers throughout the day or whatever. And then each speaker had a word that they would say somewhere in the session, maybe
Hmm.
at the start, maybe in the middle, maybe at the end. And then if you had the magic word for all of them, you got a prize at the end of the day. And just going
Yes,
back now, I'm like, that's gamification, right?
it is. That's gamification.
And I'm
Yeah.
like,
So,
man,
and that's, yeah. So it's just little kinds of things. So like the images, or the click the link because you went to the content, or do a scavenger hunt, but it's really thinking about, where does your audience drop off and what can I do to help motivate them? Another gamification technique that a lot of course creators use and may not know it's gamification is that countdown clock, like cart closing, because it's that sense of
oh,
urgency and that sense
gotcha.
of loss.
Oh, hold on. So let me get my head around here. So when we're talking about gamification for sales, we're
Hmm.
not necessarily talking about things you do in the course to make more so they buy the next course. It's more in our marketing stuff. How can we gamify it?
Yes. So
There
it can
we
go both
go.
ways.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
with the cart closed, that is a gamification technique. It's that sense of urgency, that sense of loss. You just have to make sure that you balance it out. So
Mm,
you don't want to bombard your audience with, like, every week,
it's a
the
new
cart's
game.
closing, the cart's closing. Or
Yeah.
what I've seen some folks do is the cart's closing, but the cart never closes.
Yeah.
So then people just tune you out. So it's like, okay, there's a sense of urgency. There's a timer. It says that this is going to shut down in an hour. And then I go back 2 hours later and it goes right back to where it was. I'm like, oh, well, in that case, they really don't mean it.
Yeah.
So I can buy whenever I want to buy. So you got to make sure that you're consistent with what you do. But yes, you can also gamify the sales process.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. You got one more tip for us there, Mary, on the sales side of things. What's another way we could get, apart from the countdown and the timer, what's another way we could gamify that sales process or
So,
gamify
and
it to make more sales?
right. So another thing is, when you look at gamification from like a behavioral design, a lot of people want to do things that their friends are doing. And so
Mm,
having that social proof on your sales page is really powerful. But more important is asking people that come to your page, especially past students, to share their experience, not as a testimonial, but just out on social media,
mm.
because now they also have this sense of like, ooh, I'm important. Jonah asked me to share his stuff with my friends. And so while we don't think of it as gamification, that really is a type of gamification element.
Yes.
And there's
Yeah.
there's a huge number of people that are really motivated by that. Like, that's why summits are so popular, and everybody's just like, "Oh yeah, promote my summit, do this, do that." But make it yours instead of just using like swipe copy that everyone says the same thing, and then you get 10 emails from 10 different people with the exact same words. And I
Yeah.
think many of us are guilty of that if we've been in that world. Make it your own and go, hey, I was
100%.
on a podcast with my friend Jonah, and he's got this cool thing coming up, and I got a sneak peek, and it's really cool. And I think you should do it, because now people are doing it because of you and your personality and your influence with them. And it's like, oh, okay, well, if Jonah says this is good, if Mary says this is good, I think I'm going to go check it out.
That gets me every time. I signed, and I was like, in many, but in the fitness world as well, because it's like
Hmm.
I remember one of my friends posted a before and after, not a weight loss one, a flexibility one, where it was like, hey, he was my flexibility 3 months ago. Here's me now after working with this trainer here. Shut up and take my money. I reached out to that
Oh,
trainer
yeah.
straight away. And I was like, so I don't care what you do, sign me up for it. So definitely people are motivated by that.
Yeah. So
Uh,
it's just like, woo, okay, let's do it.
100%. Now, my next question from there, Mary, revolves around the course platform. I think you dropped it earlier, but I'll
Uh-huh.
ask it anyway, and there might be some other things there. So I
Sure.
ask anyone, every single guest I come on, I say, hey, what's your platform of choice? What do you like using? What do you recommend people use? I think you mentioned Thinkific there, but I'll ask anyway and just confirm. And then if you can also make it specific to gamification and say, hey, I use Thinkific and here's some really cool ways you can do it. Or if there's other platforms as well that you've seen, what can you tell us about course platforms in general and gamification? And then your favorite.
Oh, yeah. So I am a Thinkific expert, so I do use Thinkific. I am also a former learning management system administrator. So I have experience across multiple platforms, from huge, like, 500 plus $1,000 contracts that are for entire schools and universities, to large corporate ones. Behind the scenes, many of them are pretty close to the same. The reason we chose Thinkific as our platform of choice is twofold. One, it supports HTML5 content, which is more interactive. So I can build a virtual escape game for my course in other software and put it in the course, and the learner has this like awesome experience, and they're literally playing a game on the platform. So it's not just video based. And especially in the last couple months with the new Thinkific App Store, there are several apps that you can then get for either free or very low cost that build in those gamified elements for you. So you can have the confetti pops, you can have the recognition, and it's built right in. And you just say, yes, when the learner does X, then have this pop out and say, woo, you did this. Or when the learner collects so many points, they can go to your store and redeem the points for a prize.
Yeah, wow. Okay. You've made me jealous that I'm not using Thinkific. But okay, good tips there. My final question, Mary, revolves around mentors. You also touched on some earlier as well, but I'll ask them again there. You're obviously a mentor for plenty of people that want to gamify their online courses. I'm
Mhm.
curious to hear who your biggest mentors have been. And if you could give it to us in a few different ways, if you could tell us a mentor that you've paid money to and you've done their course, their program, or whatever it is, a mentor that you haven't paid money to, but you've followed their work, social media, YouTube, Instagram, whatever, and then a book that you recommend every course creator should read if they want to get better at gamification or
Ooh,
better at course experience in or selling. A book every course creator should read. Let's simplify that.
okay. So first of all, for the paid money one, in terms of gamification, I would say Yu Kai Chow, and he created the Octalysis framework. And that's really where I learned about the behavioral and the core drives. And with that, the question about the book, I would read his book, Actionable Gamification,
Okay,
because
let me Amazon that right now.
it really walks through the strategy and in detail, and white hat, black hat, core drives, game elements, the whole shebang. In terms of mentors that I have not paid money to, there's about three of them. So there's Mo Reda, and he does a gamification and instructional design, and he is in the United Arab Republic. There's Terry Pierce out of the UK, who does playful learning. And then there's Sarah, whose last name I believe is Lefevre. I've only chatted with her, and I know her as Sarah from LinkedIn, but she has a gamification online magazine called Litigaги, and every issue really does a deep dive into a particular topic, like how do you create your feedback loop? How do you prototype your course? So I would say those would be my three unpaid mentors, and then Yu Kai Chow would be the paid mentor.
Awesome. I've just put his book on my Amazon list then.
Yeah, and then
um,
if go look for Litigaги, it's free, and all the people that I mentioned, and Mosa Menem, who creates a really cool leadership game, they're all featured in her magazine as well. So
yeah, I will
you
put
get
that
to
on
know
my
my
list.
my people.
There we go. Mary, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover today.
Sure.
I'm sure there's going to be a heap of people watching this that are like, okay, this woman is awesome. I want to hear more about her. The best place we can go is your Facebook page. Is that right?
I would say the best place to track me down would be our Facebook page, which is Lavender Dragon Team,
Awesome.
or just track me down, Mary Nunaley on LinkedIn.
I'll put both of those in the show notes.
Oh, well, thank
Mary,
you.
no, yo, of course. Mary, that's anything I should have asked you but forgot to, or anything you want to finish us off with?
Let's see. You should have asked, how can you do gamification at a very low cost? Because so many
Yes.
people get caught into I have to buy all these platforms and systems and everything. You could gamify your course with something as simple as a Google Sheet
Okay.
and a Google form.
Example?
If you want to do points for something, you have the students at the end of each lesson, just answer like three simple questions, and it feeds into a spreadsheet, and you can tally things up and build a leaderboard right from that if you want to use a leaderboard.
Yeah, there we go. Love it. I'll get playing on Google.
There you
Um,
go.
awesome, Mary. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. This has been a pleasure.